What are what's a kind of a message you have to the military? Because I know you're trying to promote this, and we're trying to get the military to adapt more powerlifting techniques and stuff. And you're working with a lot of military. What's kind of the message here, the main message that you're trying to deliver?
Well, we need to get stronger, and the reason we need to get stronger is strength decreases injury. Cardio does not.
Right.
And the more we decrease the injury, the better off the guys are going to be when they're out of service. They're not going to have near the issues that I see on a daily basis with the guys that are already out, and now they're paying for the stupid ass training they were doing when they were in the service.
Right.
So maybe you say, well, my platoon or my division doesn't do this. It has to be up to you to get better, and maybe you have to outsource that. You know what I mean? But the point being is, the military needs to understand that we have to fix these weaknesses. We almost have a 33% non-deployable ratio. That means 1 out of every 3 guys can't fight because they're fucked up.
Wow.
And that's because we don't want to educate ourselves on how to train properly.
Right. You need to be stronger.
Right. Strength decreases injury.
This is Mark Bell from supertraining.tv, Super Training Gym, the strongest gym in the West, and we're here today with big old Matt Wenning, one of the strongest human beings on the face of the earth. 1,197 pound squat and multi-ply gear. How much did you squat raw?
850.
850, not bad. Bench press is over 600 pounds. And Matt has been recently working with some military folks on training, and so that's what he's going to take us through today. Show us the first exercise here, Matt.
The first exercise we use for all the guys in the military that I work with is the kettlebell swing. We only need about 3 cubic feet of area, 1 kettlebell, and basically what it's going to do is it's going to test the guy's lungs capacity, their strengths and weaknesses, and overall body fitness as it relates to strength. So a 50-pound kettlebell is a great tool because it weighs roughly about the same amount as their equipment will weigh. So it's going to show them beyond running what they're going to be able to do in full gear if they were out in the real world, out in the field. So what we'll do is we'll take these guys and we'll make them swing it as long as they can until they break or they can't get it up as high as they can, and we're going to see a lot of weaknesses, and we're going to see where strength, maybe fitness, maybe both will start to break. So that's just a great tool with very limited space that you need to make them better.
Okay, and what are we looking for form-wise? Maybe we can bring one of these guys in and kind of demo, and you can kind of talk them through.
Yeah, so basically what we're going to do is they're going to grab wherever they feel physically comfortable grabbing or putting their feet. I would actually come in a little closer than that. Remember that you're going to be sumo deadlifting later, but this is going to be a tool. You want to make sure that you see your feet being this wide is not really going to be super specific for conditioning, because most of the stuff you're going to be doing is going to be about right here or slightly narrower. So you want your feet in kind of where you naturally stand, just a little bit wider. Yeah, that would be a good position. So what he's going to do, he's going to grab the kettlebell. He's going to treat it like a squat. So there's a lot of times you see guys swing kettlebells, show them like the shitty way. So they're going to basically throw it, and he's leaning over with a lot of back, and he's not using a lot of hips. Do like 5 reps, bad. 5 reps, terrible. So, and you'll also see these guys, it's going to be like, they're going to swing it like right here. You're a horrible presenter.
I'm sorry.
So most times you'll see this, you'll see guys doing this stuff. This is not a fucking kettlebell swing, okay? Get it down in there and throw it to your eyes. Now you have to use every bit of muscle in your entire body, okay? So that's how we teach it, and that's how we use it. That way we make sure we can see what's breaking down, okay? Because as he gets tired, he's going to try to go more efficient until there's no efficiency left. So with that being said, and everybody's kind of seen how to do it, we're just going to take him now and just see how long he can go, and then we'll see, does his lungs burn out, does his muscles burn out, and if so, which muscles are burning.
I'm on the timer here, and here we go.
All right. Let's go, Nick. A good time for most standard infantry guys is going to be roughly 2 to 3 minutes. SF guys usually anywhere from 6 to 10, and the most elite around 15. You know how like when we squat and bench we get real tight and we hold our air? That's your enemy on this one. You have to be able to breathe and stay tight at the same time.
Gotcha.
The next thing you're going to notice is whatever muscle group is the weakest link in his posterior chain is going to be the limiter.
Right.
So if his lower back doesn't work too well or it's weak, he's going to start rounding over there until it fries.
Is that how we know there's a breakdown? He's going to start to round over a little bit more?
Yeah, he'll start rounding over more. He'll start not wanting to get it up as high. He'll start leaning over. It costs more energy to squat it than it does just to kind of throw it with your hip.
Have you ever had anybody shit themselves during this?
No, but you know, I'm sure it's possible. All right, good. So how long did we make it?
150.
So in a minute and 50 seconds, we just took a pretty fit fucking guy and broke his ass. Now, where did you feel that the most? Was it wind, muscles? What gave out? Wind. And you have to run for what you do, right?
Yes, sir.
But you see, running didn't do jack shit for that. So my point being is if you were in full gear, had a pack, your M16, and a bunch of ammo, and maybe a GPS system on you, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You can fight for a minute and 50 seconds. You're going to have to go hide behind a wall if there is one. Right?
Yeah.
So this is a good test. Okay?
You're in the Air Force? And what's your name?
Nick Podolsky.
All right, man. Thank you.
Just keep your knees pushed out, keep your hips down, swing it to your eyes. Once you can't get it to your eyes, you're done. All right. Set and start. Yep, just like that. Good. Let it fall down. Lock your legs all the way out the top. Squeeze your glutes. Perfect. So this is the kind of form you want to see if you truly want to test your ability and full equipment in the military.
Doing good. 120.
So as you can see, these guys are in really good shape. I mean, he's not a weak guy by any means. Minute 20, 50-pound kettlebell, fucking broke. A lot faster than taking a guy out on a 1 hour run and seeing where they're truly at, you know. But the reason we do that in the military is because we're lazy.
What are a couple ways, like, I know that like the main goal isn't just to improve on this alone. The main goal is to be able to, you know, have practical application. But like, what are some things that would improve this? Like, just getting stronger?
This is
like,
where me and you come in and it can really help, because the way you can do this longer is to get stronger. If his how much is your best deadlift? We'll find out today, but 540. Okay, 540. Okay,
good.
Which is really good.
Yeah, especially for his body weight.
If his deadlift was 600, his percentage of that maximum would decrease significantly.
Right. That
so
would
for
feel
most
lighter
people,
to
you're
him.
not going to run into a 500-pound deadlift in the Army. That's just not the way to, or any kind of forces.
Right.
That's pretty rare. But my point being is that as most guys, the average deadlift in the Army is 200 pounds. That's not bullshit.
Crazy.
I've seen it over 10,000 guys.
Right.
The average deadlift is 200.
Right.
So if you're swinging something that's 50 pounds, what percentage of maximum is that?
Right.
It's significant, right? 20, 30%. If it's 20, 30% of your max, and another guy, it's only 5% of his max, who's going to be able to do it
Yeah,
longer?
it's going to feel so light to the stronger guy.
Right. So he's kind of an anomaly. I mean, you won't see that too much. But my point is, if his deadlift is up another 40 or 50 pounds, it makes that a percentage a bit lighter. But as you can see, most of the guys are having problems with wind because it's anaerobic capacity that smokes your ass.
Right.
So what happens in the Army is we either try to get stronger, doing bodybuilding shit because we don't understand, or we do running, which is pure cardio, but we don't think about what's in the middle. And that's the true thing. If he was just walking around like this fighting, then we would need to run all the time with very little equipment.
Say your name and what branch of the military you're in.
Harris from the Air Force as well.
All right, man. Thank
Travis.
you.
Oh, shit.
Damon Thurman, a super trainer here. He's going to embarrass me.
Let's go now. Yep.
You think it's good for military guys to take it far enough to be able to compete a little bit? You know, hop into some powerlifting.
Well, I think naturally they're competitive anyway, and that's why, especially at the upper levels, the SF guys and Ranger, they're always trying to beat each other at everything. So I think that yes, powerlifting would be a viable alternative. But like I said, once you get up into the 5s and 6s on deadlifts and upper 3s and 4s on bench press and 5s on squats, you're relatively strong enough to do what you need to do.
Right.
You know, at that point, you're going to sacrifice conditioning for strength. You know,
Doing good, Damon.
you're not going to find too many guys who can bench.
You're at a
600.
minute 10. I would just see if you can ride it out for 2 minutes. You'd beat everybody. 115.
We're at 115.
Made him laugh, and then he dropped it. This is Damon Thurman. If you can speak for a second.
Damon Thurman, United States Air Force, 12 years. Station at Travis, Air Force Base.
12 years, goddamn. Well, thank you. Next up.
All right, old school.
Here we go.
Show us that age doesn't matter.
That's right.
Yeah, try to squat down in there a little bit more. Stay on your heels. That's better. Good.
2 minutes even. We're at 203. 203.
It's all about training age. Good work, man.
Yeah, very good.
Dave Burgess, I'm United States Air Force, E8, retired. 25 years Air Force.
Have you been into training for a long time? Have you been into fitness for a long time?
Just started CrossFitting actually a couple years ago.
Oh, cool.
And then I just started kind of powerlifting about a month ago.
Yeah.
You train with
Doing
Artero?
barbell watt. Artero, I've trained with him, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Sorry, I had a breath.
That's all right. You guys get
Yeah,
some
great
rest
job.
for a sec.
Appreciate it.
Good job. So that's the other thing I try to fight in the Army as the guys get older I try to tell them that the curve of their fitness level is not conducive to age.
How old are you?
36.
Yeah, and you're
36 in a couple
and
months.
you're the strongest you've ever been, probably.
Right. Stronger. Yeah, stronger than I've ever been. So strength and fitness level all have to do with training very, very smart as you age.
Right.
And as you know, most of the guys that me and you both know that's broke world records are between 35 and 45.
Right.
Always.
Yeah, you might need a little bit more time to recover. You might need to think about your training a little bit more than a younger guy.
Yep.
But that's probably about the only difference, right?
Yep. And I think if we can change that with the military, is teaching them to train a little smarter and think about these guys when they're in their 40s and 50s. I mean, I don't know how many guys. I got a guy right now at the gym that was an 82nd Airborne.
Yeah.
He's beat the hell up because all he did was run and jump out of planes.
Right.
If he would have just got his glutes and his hamstrings and his lower back stronger, he wouldn't be nearly as beat up. And he is a huge advocate of what I do because he feels better now than he did when he was actually in the service, and he's almost 50.
It makes a lot of sense, but it doesn't always apply to different things that you're doing. You don't think, that you need to quote unquote train to jump out of planes. That all you need to know is how to jump and how to land.
Yep.
But if you train and you're stronger, then that landing's going to be a lot cleaner.
Right. You're taking the percentage of your maximum and you're lowering it.
Right.
So if you can only take so much impact force, the stronger you are, that impact force increases. Therefore, the
any idea what that impact force is?
The impact force of them guys jumping out of airborne division is pretty much like jumping off of a 7-foot box.
Oh shit! Yeah,
that's what it feels like when you land. And I'm telling you that these guys can't squat 250.
Yeah.
So how much do they weigh? They weigh 185 to 200, and they got 100 pounds of gear on them, and they're landing from a 7-foot ledge.
Yeah.
You better be strong.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Right. All right. Let's take them on to the next movement.
Now, even though I pull conventional to meet, and most of the guys are going to be stronger at a conventional stance just because that's where we walk and that's how we move, I always train the sumo, and I don't let even anybody in my gym, especially in the military, I don't teach them any kind of conventional pulling until they can sumo deadlift at least 405.
Right. You want their hips to be proficient? And
I want the hips to be at least a key player instead of the quadricep dominating everything.
Right.
And that causes lower back problems. So if we can get the glutes and the hamstrings strong first, then we can put it back into play with the quadricep. But if you have anybody walking in off the street, their quads are going to way outshine the posterior side.
And then the quads could be tight and kind of be pulling on your hips and making your back.
Yeah, giving more back issues. Exactly.
Gotcha.
So I always teach the sumo pull to all the military guys, and I even use it myself. I pull conventional meets, have deadlifted 804. I pull sumo about 75% of the time, just to keep the pressure off my back.
Right. And that's kind of what Ed Cohn said when he was here, except for he did a little bit the opposite because he was, doing so many squats and lifting so heavy that it was beating up his hips to go wide all the time.
Yep.
So most of the time his training was flip-flopped a little bit. He would do 80% conventional to build the lower back for his sumo pulling that he would do in the meet. So it sounds the same. You're just training.
Similar. Yeah, and like I said, you're going to have different builds, and the key with being a good coach or even a good lifter in the long term is knowing what works for you. Right. Because there's certain things that work for me that I don't employ with other people. But I have learned one thing, and that's get guys strong sumo before you teach the conventional, especially if you get them as a beginner.
Right.
And you're going to save yourself a lot of hassle. Because at the end, even a conventional puller, the limitation becomes the hips.
What's a sumo deadlift supposed to look like?
Okay, well, sumo deadlift is supposed to look like, depending on, if you're 6 foot tall.
Make sure you have a good pair of sturdy sandals.
You must have sandals. That's the first thing.
Jordans is kind of key too.
Yeah, you want the Jordan sandals. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to have your heel or your shins about lined up with the circle, and that works pretty much if you're short or tall or whatever.
Right.
Okay. The next thing you're going to want to do is you want to squat to the bar. So you want to sit your butt back like we teach a vertical shank squat, right?
Yep.
And then I want to grab from there. Now what I do is I teach a double overhand for guys because normally
builds grip,
builds hand strength, but it also develops the back equally on both sides.
Evenly, yeah.
You don't
might
have
be twisting, right?
one side or the other getting strong, and that's important for the beginner because you want the hands to be the limiter in the beginning.
Right.
Because me and you, when we were bigger and still now, fatter. You can still deadlift quite a bit double overhand, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Just like I can.
Right.
So my best double overhand deadlift is 650.
Jesus.
So if I'm training,
I'm not on that level.
well, so if I'm training, I train double overhand probably about 70%.
650 double overhand, no hook.
No hook. Just then I can't because my fingers are so thick and short. So I always teach a double overhand pull, and then you want your hands where they lay. So you don't want to be out here, you don't want to be in here, you just put your hands where they lay. You want to grab, and the initial motion is to pull. You can put your head pretty much wherever you like, but you want to pull with the lat and try to row it this way statically.
Shoulders kind of went back and down.
So they go back and down. And that starts the pull from there. That keeps everything tight. Usually the limiting factor is being able to keep the upper back tight. So then you'll see this fall and this rise. And that's where you'll see the failure.
What are we looking for with the lower back?
The lower back, you want to try to keep the tailbone tilted out as much as possible. Keep the butt leaning the entire way. And that always starts, in my mind, from sitting and grabbing the bar correctly. So if I sit back like I'm going to do a good squat.
You've already cued your body,
I've already
right?
cued it.
Okay.
So, like I said, you're going to see these guys, because they're all different built,
Right.
they're all different experiences, they're going to line up different ways. But overall, that's the way you want to teach it from the beginning.
And some people are trying to get tight in the sumo deadlift, but they pull their shoulders up and back, and then it makes it longer to pull.
Right, it's supposed to be a back and chest up, so it pulls this way. So that's pretty much the key with that. Now, the lateral pressure on the foot is also important. So you're trying to push this way as you're picking it up, and you're trying to push your hips into the bar. That's what makes it a hip dominant exercise.
Right.
But because your feet are out wide, and if your chest is up, it's going to start that way anyway.
Is there any tips to help the lower back, to prevent hurting your lower back?
I think it's just locking in the lats. If the upper back's locked, the body really can't lean over and go to the lumbar spine or the sacrum. It has to keep everything more linear.
Do you have your military guys wear belts or anything like that?
I try not to, unless they're doing powerlifting meets
Right.
or things like that, where that could help or aid, but
They get a little more into it, maybe they get excited, you let them throw on a
yeah,
belt
they
for
don't.
big lifts here or there.
Exactly. They don't have a belt out in the field. So the double overhand grip, one of the biggest things you can have as an athlete, regardless if it's military or whatever, if you got strong hands
Yeah.
and a strong lower back, you can do a lot of shit.
Yeah.
So don't go straight over to the over-under handle. Get your hands strong first.
Right. All right, we'll see what some of these guys look like here.
Yep. Good.
Good. You haven't done a lot of sumo deadlifting before?
Never.
Really? That's crazy.
Yeah.
That looks really good.
Yeah, you're not going to see that too often.
How much do you weigh?
163.
I mean, that looks like you can pull like 650 that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
With some work, obviously.
Yeah.
That's
We'll
crazy.
see though
That
with
looks
the
really
double
good.
overhand, we'll see where his weaknesses are. Because
Yeah.
even in that one, starting his positions his ass is starting to come up
Yeah.
a little.
Yeah.
So he's not staying as low as he wanted to be
Right,
at that
right.
point, and it's just because he's trying to find the strongest muscles to lift
Yeah.
it. So in the next plate or two, shit's going to get real.
Yeah,
but
right.
like I said, we understand that we got to come in and fail all the time. And it's not a bad thing for us.
It's a good
But
thing.
for these guys, failure is negative.
Right.
Because people think, well, I went up and I failed. Well, it's not a bad thing. Failure is doing a lot of things. One, it makes you the strongest. Two, it shows you all your weaknesses.
Right.
So if you are keen to
It's a
see
learning
what you're
tool.
supposed to be seeing, it's an awesome tool.
Right.
But we just think, oh, I don't know if I want to fail today,
Right. There you go. Good.
Good.
Nice. Nice work.
The perfection of form is about to stop.
Do it perfectly or do it whatever way you can.
That's right.
Stay with it now. Stay with it. Stay with it. Stay with it. Yep. There you go. Good.
All right, dude.
Here we go.
Okay.
Go.
Good. Starting to see a little bit of upper back rounding, but not terrible. Good.
Good.
So what we
Effort.
saw there was his hips shot up and it turned parallel with his back turned parallel with the floor. So that's telling you right there his quadriceps are much stronger than the posterior chain because none of it wants to work together anymore. It wants to work in pieces.
Right.
Which is why you see lower back issues. If the quad's strong, it's going to want you to lean over. It's not because the lower back's necessarily super weak, which
Right.
it probably is, but the real key is when this is strong, it will automatically cause that to happen.
Right.
In any movement.
Yeah, I got you.
So the posterior chain has to be elevated to the top. So we'll
Right.
go through accessory work and show them what I would fix with that.
Okay.
Hey, I got a rule in my gym, you can't put chalk unless there's 600 on the bar. And it can be in any lift, but it has to be 600.
Gotta be 600 pounds.
Just messing with you.
Come on now. Here we go.
Come on, let's get it. Just stay tight, use those hips. Block all that air in. Lats, keep the lats tight, squeeze, lats.
You got it. There you go.
Good.
All the way,
Stop.
all the way, all the way.
That's good. So what we saw right off the ground was his lower back tilt, and then what happened was that allowed his legs to pick it up off the ground, but once it got to the hips, once the butts disappeared, there's no hip power.
Right.
We can't lock it out.
Yeah, a lot of times you see someone round over at the beginning, it makes the lockout that much harder.
Let's go now. Good, lock it in tight. Keep those lats really tight. Try to row it off the floor as you're picking it up. Row, 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 squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. All right, stop, good, good. Now what we saw there, and very little, I mean, maybe not even on the camera, is that his upper back, as soon as he strained on it for about a half a second, his lower back started to fall apart. And that's because his quads want to use everything. His body's trying to fight to pull it backwards, but you're just not getting any power off the ground, which is, common.
With upper back rounding, what are some suggestions to clean that up?
Lots of lat pull downs, lots of rows, and lots of, like we talked about, activating the lat before you deadlift. I mean, raise your hand if anybody's ever told you to squeeze your lats before you pick it up off the ground. Maybe before, but very fucking rarely. So what you're gonna do is you just basically set your body up the same way, and when you grab the bar, what you're gonna do is you're gonna try to pull your shoulders back that way. Instead, not up, but back. And that's gonna cause
And you're pulling on the bar a little bit that way, right?
Yeah, you're trying to pull, like Eddie talks about, you pull all the slack out of the bar.
Right.
When you pull the slack out of the bar, the muscle that's doing that is the lat.
Right.
So the biggest limitation for you guys, you're pretty balanced. Your lower back starts to tilt over a little bit, and you're tired from lifting two meets in a row. But the real key is we put him in a position where he had to go double overhand, and your hands weren't nearly as strong as the rest of your body. And that's, you want to try to get your deadlift up with that as high as you can as a tactical athlete. As a powerlifter, grip still may be an issue. So when you've missed big time deadlifts, where and how have you missed them? Is it at the top where your hips don't come through?
At the bottom, I just kind
When
of
you start?
my pull. My conventional used to be really high, my hips high. I don't have a hard time getting off the ground, just hit the back.
Okay. Okay, so usually the other thing, if he has a hard time getting his off the back and keeping his hips high, not using a lot of leg drive. But the other major issue is if you watch him pull when he gets to maximum, we saw in the Sumo, as the bar did not want to move off the ground, his tailbone started to disappear,
Right.
which is a telltale sign he doesn't use any glutes. So you're probably a hamstring dominant puller, even on a hips high conventional pull. So you need to do a lot of glutes. Same thing with you. It's just much more easy to see because you can see everything round over. His is very hard to see because his lower back only rounds over a half an inch. So you have to be looking in the right areas. So it's showing you that you're very quad dominant. Posterior chain needs to be activated more through your training. That makes sense? So what I would do is glute hams, reverse hypers, oblique training, and then making sure that the hamstring is firing and you helping with the glutes to get all that stuff balanced. And then stay away from anything quadricep dominant. So you'd want to stay wide on deadlifts for a while, wide on the squats for a while until your hips come around. And then you can put your body wherever you want. You'll be strong and use everything in synchronicity. That makes sense?
Would you have these guys do some speed work as well?
Yeah, speed work's great because these guys are strong enough to actually use speed work.
Right.
And that sounds weird, but the older I've gotten and the more beginners I've trained, I almost think speed work until you get up to a certain level can be, under an untrained eye, a waste of time.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I've noticed with training people myself that kids, teenagers and females that are just starting, or even men that are just starting, it's not a great usage of your time.
No, I think the best way to put speed work into your training as a beginner is to utilize jumps.
Right.
And jump up to things, not down.
Right.
Jump up to things until you get pretty proficient at that, and then don't ever let that kind of oversee your weightlifting until you're strong enough to kind of turn your weight training into plyometrics, which is speed work.
If you did have these guys do speed work, what would it look like? How many sets? How many reps?
They would do anywhere from, if it was talking deadlift specific, they would be doing anywhere from 35-40% up to around 60%.
Right.
And then they would do 10 sets of one. But my key on the thing is to lock the lats for 2 to 3 seconds before you pull it off the floor.
Right.
Pull it as fast as you can, and then lower it slowly so you can build some muscle.
So do it perfect and do it fast.
You see all these guys, boom, they pick up the deadlift and they just drop them and walk away. You just missed half of the muscle building because you didn't lower it.
Right.
So especially in the off season, I lower weight slower to build that eccentric strength and muscle, therefore helping my concentric deadlift.
Well, and why not too on a speed thing when the percentages are lower? Why not get more work out of it?
Time under tension.
Get more work out of less weight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So we try to pull it up fast and we let it go because we think that the concentric is the most important thing. And for the deadlift, it is, but you're missing a lot of work lowering it fast too, or just dropping it.
What do you want to see next from these guys? We're going to do some bench pressing?
Yeah, we'll do some bench pressing. We'll lay them down. We'll teach them the basics. We'll max them. We'll watch them break. We'll see where the weaknesses are there. And if a lat is a weak spot, we're going to see that too. Right. So we'll be able to see, you know, actually use the bench press as a back builder, which we all know is important.
Right. So now we're moving on to the bench press here. Matt's going to show us some of the important techniques behind a bench press.
Okay. Right, well, the bench press is not as easy as an exercise as just laying on your back and going up and down. And I've explained this in a lot of articles that Mark's written, or, you know, I've wrote and gave
Power,
Mark, put in the Power magazine. But basically, a lot of it has to do with hand pressure and wrist position. So what I'm going to teach the guys today is they need to squeeze the bar as tight as they can. The hand should be white from squeezing it. And then the knuckle should be facing as close to parallel or perpendicular, however you want to look at it, as possible. You'll see a lot of guys roll the wrist back, and that automatically puts the pressure over the shoulder. The reason that you see this happen is they don't understand to keep this tight. That's one. And two, this is usually the dominant muscle when bench pressing, which all the advanced guys know you better stay away from that anterior deltoid. You're not going to be benching very long.
Right.
So this causes the tricep to have to be utilized more. So for average people, they don't like the feeling of that, and they roll backwards because it feels like keeps pressure over here. So we have to learn to get strong in this position so we keep the pressure on the elbow.
Is that kind of how these muscles developed here?
Yeah.
Think from a lot of heavy bench press, obviously pulling and stuff. But
obviously pulling, but honestly, what was funny was after I did Raw Unity meet in February, the three areas that were the most sore was obviously low back, but my forearm extensors and flexors were destroyed.
Yeah.
And it was not from deadlifts, it was all from bench press. That's how hard I squeezed the bar.
Right.
My forearms were sore for like 4 weeks to bench 600. So
yeah.
That's the real key. And like I said, you know, a lot of the advanced guys know this stuff because they have to bench that way. But when you're benching 250 to 350, 400, you can do a lot of fucked up shit, and it's never going to really show until something blows.
Right.
So that's why it's really, really important to, you know, seek out guys like Mark and me and a lot of other guys that are really good, and make sure that your form's perfect once you become interested in doing this. Because it's a lot easier to fix it when you suck than it is when you're fairly good, and then you have to fix it when you already have bad technique.
Show us what your technique and form looks like.
All right. So now in competition for powerlifting, obviously the technique's a lot different. But for normal bench pressing, you want to pull the feet back until you have a little bit of tightness in the hip flexor. That's going to be right in here. Okay. So when I lay back, I'm going to pull my feet back until I have a little bit of tightness right on my hip. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch my shoulder blades together as hard as I can, like I'm trying to row the bar back.
Can you do that one more time?
So normal people are going to lay down, and they're just going to stay like this, and they're going to take the weight out. I want to try to pinch my shoulder blades back and squeeze my lower trap and my lats as hard as I can. What that's going to do is it's going to cause me to only go one way, down and up. I can't really rotate or do any of this if my shoulder blades are pinched back. So I'm trying to drive my feet in the ground, pull my shoulder blades back. That way the bar only goes down and up. So the next thing, that's kind of something that I do, but I've seen a lot of really good raw benchers kind of follow my suit and guys in the past, is you don't want your hands much out of shoulder width.
Okay.
And what that's going to do is...
you kind of have almost like a close grip. You're like, what, 6'1", 6'2"?
Yeah, I'm 6'1", but I have a little bit of knurling showing barely on my thumb. So I'm inside the rings. My hand's completely inside the rings, and I got pretty wide shoulders.
Right.
Now what that's going to do is guys that are wider are going to feel like, well, that's a longer range of motion, and it is, but the leverage that the muscles...
You mean shorter, right? With the wider grip, shorter.
Right, you're going to have a shorter range of motion. If you come in close, it's going to have a longer range of motion, but the muscles are in a better position.
I got you.
So over time,
right,
the muscles being in a better position is going to make you stronger.
Something I noticed too with a closer grip, it's more compact. So your forearms and bicep are going to be in contact with each other. Right. You have a lot more tightness, basically.
Yeah, you're almost barely creating any room between your lat and your arm. The wider you go, you got more of this going on. The tighter you are, it's going to stay in a straighter line. So sometimes things aren't always what they appear on the bench. A wider grip may seem a shorter range of motion, and it is, but it's not a better mechanical advantage. Right. So I grab with right inside the rings with just a little bit of knurling showing on the thumb, and then before I take it out, I squeeze my shoulder blades back as hard as I can, and then I take the bar out over my chest, not over my face. The first thing I do is I keep my arms as tight as I can in my body, lower it straight down, push it straight up, and then I'm in a perfect position. So
with a lot of people talk about tucking the elbows in and keeping them tight to your body. With your positioning here, with your way your hands are, you don't really have to worry about tucking them in too hard.
Yeah, what you want to do is you actually want to take. I start with my elbows out. Okay. And what that does is it allows me to put it in a good position.
And it's in
your
lats
more. As I go down,
kinda?
I'm slowly trying to pull my elbows into my lats, but I'm not forcing it in
Right.
a wrench position.
Let me see you do it like one more time. Maybe just
Yeah,
do
that's
like
the
3
difference
reps or
between being in a shirt and being raw.
Yeah.
Is you want it as linear as possible. So I'm right here. I got my knuckles facing up, up as far as they can go, and then I'm going to lower it straight down and then straight up. But I'm pushing through my tricep. So my pecs and my shoulders play a
Right.
minimal part in that.
And at the bottom of the lift, your elbow is kind of in line with like where your
Yes,
wrist is, right?
Exactly. So you want that in alignment.
Right.
Alignment is everything.
Okay.
So if you're this much wider than I am, your hands are going to be on the rings.
With your hands being as close as they are, does a close grip bench press even closer for you?
Yeah,
Is that-
so when I train close grip, I usually do 2 fingers to 1 finger on the smooth. I can still do 550 for 3 there. So when I go out
because
here-
you're going fairly close, do you train wide as well?
I do train wide, but only within the last few years.
Okay.
And it's just because I've mastered in close, and now I need to find something to make me stronger, but I hardly ever teach anybody wide.
Right.
Just because I don't want the
Yeah,
wear
it's
and tear
dangerous.
here. And it's dangerous.
So if you are going to go wide, it's kind of like an accessory movement. It's a little bit
Yes.
lighter maybe.
Yeah. So I would say as a beginner or guys that are trying to get their bench stronger, you need to be very strong in this range right here in order to last for a long time and also to make future progress.
Right. All right, let's see what it looks like when these guys hop on the bench here.
A couple reps.
Yeah, just 2 reps. Yeah, just touch and go.
There we go. 1,
So you see
2, 3. Yep.
his position is his hands are already out wider than mine were. I don't think his shoulders are quite as wide as mine. That's good. So like I said,
He's trying to tell you that his shoulders are wider.
That's what he's trying to
say.
say. But like I said, that's the key with this. Is it's going to show me where his strengths and his weaknesses are. Good. That's good. And like I said, and more so in performance, that may feel like he's stronger there, but the strongest guys are the ones that stay away from getting hurt the most.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
maybe his position in closer would feel weaker,
Right.
but it would allow him to bench longer. Therefore, in 15 years, he would bench 600.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, the longer you can survive, the stronger you're going to get, right?
Oh, wow, it's grippy.
Yeah, oh, yeah, the bench is grippy, yeah. Everything in here is kind of specialized. Okay, 1, 2, 3, up.
Lock it, yep. So even with him, as you can see, that's not a real wide bench press grip,
Right.
but it's still wider than mine.
Right.
You know, the key is having it as linear as possible.
Right.
That way the bones are in a good position.
He's kind of got long arms. Have you noticed any
Yeah.
difference with guys with longer arms? You know, try to protect their shoulder because their range of motion is great.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely one issue, and like I said, a lot of it's just how you get taught in the beginning and where
Right.
you get your strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
So always try to find your weakest positions and train those positions.
Yeah, make them stronger over time.
Exactly.
2, 3, up. There you go.
Okay. Good. Now, what you're seeing right there on his next lift, don't change anything. On his next lift, what you saw with that one is his wrists were already starting to roll way the fuck back, and it's only 225.
Right.
Which is telling you that it's not wanting to stay over the elbow.
Yeah, what I think sometimes some of that is people get taught to tuck the elbows. It's just kind of like a term that's been thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
And I do agree that you need to bring the elbows in at least a little bit, but they don't need to be like over tucked. And I think what happens is you were saying you push your elbows out at the top. And I think what people are doing because they're thinking about getting their elbows in is they're doing it early.
Yeah, too early.
And then they're kind of going like this.
yeah.
They're
The
kind of
real,
going,
the real tuck position should happen about 1.5 inches to 2 inches from the chest,
Right.
in my opinion. And that worked for me for a 840
And so
shirt
you'll
bench.
pull the elbows in a little bit at the bottom.
Yeah, that worked for me for an 840
Right.
shirt bench and a 606 raw bench. And that's the thing is sometimes you gotta say, well, this guy used this and that. Well, that guy may only be a raw bencher and this guy may only be a shirt bencher, but what's worked for both?
Right.
You know, because the real key is when you're trying to train a ton of military guys is you gotta find that middle ground that works for pretty much everybody. Because the military doesn't want to hear about specifics.
Right.
Because specifics can't be used with 1 million people.
Right, yeah.
You know,
What did you bench in a shirt?
840
840, and then you did a 606 was your best
raw,
full
full
meat.
meat.
Yeah.
and those were both full meats.
Yeah.
So that was after squatting.
Yeah.
World record, 1197, and then after squatting 832 world record in 2013.
Yeah,
so
Matt, you built up a tremendous amount of explosive power in the bench press. Probably one of the more explosive lifters I've seen. What are some key elements to that? Like what have you worked on to build that speed?
Well, you know, as you know, explosiveness is leverages, and I try to fire that bar in a straight line. If you can put power in a straight line, you got a lot of force.
Right.
If power's going in an angle, it's not nearly as quick or
Right.
explosive. So by
Is there a mental aspect to it? Like you're trying to think about pushing into it as hard as you possibly
as
can?
far as speed work goes, I'm probably one of the quicker guys that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And that's from doing speed work with a considerable amount of time for many, many years. But you know, initially you have to get faster in order to lift. That's why.
And when you're doing the speed work, I mean, you can't just like throw on bands and chains. It's got to be something that you're focusing on.
Yes. So
you're thinking about pushing
when you're doing
it as hard as you
when
can,
you're doing
right?
speed work, it should be as hard on you mentally as max work.
Okay.
You should be trying to put 600 pounds of force into a 300 pound, whether it's chains or bands and a mixture of weights, as hard as you can. There should always be that maximal amount of drive every time you're trying to hit a speed bench or a max bench. And that's the real key to getting strong. Is most of the guys I've ever seen that were strong were quick. They weren't slow.
Right. Even Eric Spoto, you know, he does speed work on occasion, but you know, years and years of training and years of building up to a 650 and a 700 pound bench. He didn't do a lot of speed work before, but he still is very fast.
Yes.
And he does like repetition work and stuff, which is almost similar to speed work. And he's always trying to move the bar as quickly as he can.
Yeah, and I think that's what's made him, you know, so good. You watch a lot of those guys, especially with the
His
bodybuilding
technique
background.
is unbelievable.
You watch Efforting and watch Spoto.
Yeah.
Even though those guys are not as quick as I am on certain things, they still have so many years of experience that they're still very, very strong. But like I said, they're rarities, you know.
Right.
So it's one of those things where, you know, Spoto lowers the bar a lot slower than I do.
Right.
But you know, who really knows which way is the right or the wrong way?
Well, especially because he has so much weight on there. He's in uncharted territory.
Exactly. It's kind of an outlier.
Yeah, right. 2, 3, up. There you go. It's all you.
Get it.
Nice. This is a strong bench, man. Good.
Sometimes guys aren't stronger because they're stronger. They're stronger because they're more technically sound.
I see a lot of guys doing that. They'll take the weight out. Even some advanced guys will take the weight out and they'll hold it up there forever. They're kind of almost resetting themselves after they got the weight out. But
that's
if
why it's really important
you need
to
to
have
be
a really
ready.
good handout guy and train a lot of lats because it forces you to not be able to unlock them.
Right.
Let's go, buddy. Come on, you got it.
There we go. 1, 2, 3, up. Release.
There it is. Hit. Squeeze. All right, good. Take it. Good. So what you saw with there is the weight got up to a point where it was no longer lowering as explosive as 315.
Right.
So we wasted a lot of energy on the way down. And then the wrist being cocked back took away a lot of his power.
Right.
I always look at it like a punch. I mean, if you hit somebody like this, it's going to fucking hurt. But if I'm like this, right, it's probably still going to hurt a little bit. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
My
not going to
point
be nearly
is,
as effective.
It's not nearly as straight ahead. And that's why I try to really emphasize people benching with that straight knuckle.
Well, even when you're just squeezing your arm like that, I can see everything squeezing all together.
Just learn how to stay tight.
Right. It's upstream and downstream. You got to keep everything in.
Yeah, exactly.
In tight.
Let's go now.
3, up.
Lock it in.
Come on, Nick. Fire.
Hit. Good.
Oh, yeah.
You can see the hand
good.
waving, like everything's starting to really break here. And it's the small stabilizers.
2, 3, up.
On side.
Yep. Squeeze, finish. Good, right there, good.
God
So you
damn.
can see that's another telltale sign. When he takes the bar, gets ready to take the bar out, the bar actually comes back into the rack. That's an anterior delt activation because it wants to go this way and then go that way.
He's like
You
kind of
see that all
more
the
delt
time.
dominant.
Right. If you learn to pull your lats and like row the bar out to you, one, you'll save a ton of energy. Two, once you kind of break that, it's really hard to get it back.
Okay.
Once the anterior delt takes the weight, it's really hard to reset.
How much did you say you weigh?
163.
So you don't see too many military, you don't see anybody really, very many guys at all really, but military guys, you don't see 160 pounders benching 365.
Right.
So it's a real treat to get on camera because I think it shows that
You guys are
I think
good,
it shows
good
the lighter
representation
weight
of the military.
I think it shows the lighter weight military guys what they're capable of. I mean, you got a 400 pound bencher at 165. That's it's fucking beefy. That's good for a powerlifter, let alone a military guy.
Yeah, but like you might think that's far away, but he and I know with a little bit of work, that's right there.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah. I think we've picked up enough to where you guys' weaknesses are.
Same weight when he walked in the gym, probably about the same bench that he's already in.
So like we saw with the actual deadlift, it's the limiting factor is all the small, weaker muscle groups.
Right.
It's not the big muscles. We all of us have those genetically. So with this, the forearm extensors and flexors are obviously a weak point, turning on the anterior delt versus locking in the lat.
Right.
So even the posterior chain, what was affecting the deadlift is also affecting the bench.
Right.
A lot of you guys with the deadlift, we had a lat lock-in issue. We had a lat lock-in issue on the bench press. So it's showing us that we need to work on our upper back. So the first thing we would attack would be triceps and upper back for the bench press, obviously. But even the deadlift can gain some momentum just by getting the upper back stronger. So we're going to take a sled with 345s on it. You guys are going to drag it slowly. I want you to pull it right to your waistband. That's going to hit the lower lat. Then we're going to go like rhomboid, scapular. Then we're going to go rear delt. I want you to pull, one of you guys pull it all the way down to the curb, and then one of you guys pull it all the way fucking back. And that should be, by the time you're down there, should be pure fucking death. But that's how you're going to get your upper back to get strong.
Just seen the guys at the Harley out there flipping the fuck out.
Oh,
I rolled out of there in shorts and sandals. Like, you guys got a helmet law here? This is fucking bullshit.
Good, remember, not whip it. I should barely be able to hear that sled. Yep.
Well, I'm really pulling with the back, huh?
Yep. That's where people screw up on this the most, is they use sled momentum. They don't squeeze. In my experience, the lats and the upper back really develop through volume, not intensity.
Right. That's when Stan Efferding was here, he spoke about that. He said basically, what a bodybuilder's trying to do is they're trying to condense their time, get more work in less time.
Yeah.
But it's not so much the weight.
Right.
It's like the technique is crucial,
Yep.
and the amount of volume that you get is crucial.
Exactly. These guys are
Look
some
at
of the
these guys.
strongest dudes I've seen.
Yeah. This is more of a tricep movement,
Yeah,
tricep
all
extension.
triceps.
Yep.
It really isolates it. It's a good way to get out and do something out in the parking lot. A lot of guys in the military, they'll have like stuff like this and they'll have to do it outside.
Right.
So this is one of my favorite tricep builders.
Get outside, get a tan.
Yep, you'll see most guys will break the wrist. They'll start rolling the wrist just like they do in the bench press.
Right.
They're trying to find any leverage point they can. Oh, that's good. Have somebody else try that. Yep, nice and smooth. Try to keep your elbows in tight. Like that? Yep.
Seems like it's a good stretch too, right?
Yeah, it's a real good stretch for the lat and the serratus muscles. Let me see your elbows right there. Oh.
Yeah, he's like, oh shit, now what do I do?
Yeah, buddy.
Hey,
So I mean, think about that. You bench 350. That's the other thing too with working out is you got to find exercises that you're not good at. The ones you suck at are the ones that make you better.
Right. How many times a week? How many times a week would you like to see these guys train?
Well, I think the optimal layout for military stuff is they need to do weights 3-4 times a week. I need to do cardio rotating 3 to 4 times a week. So you would do some one day long distance as far as like ruck march, 5-8 mile ruck march, and then you want to do some sprinting activities to get them explosive, and then you want to do something in the middle like the kettlebell swing.
Right.
So you're working anaerobic conditioning, pure endurance, right, and then you're working a little bit of power.
So weights twice a week, maybe an hour or so each
Yeah,
session.
you want to stay around 50. Remember, if you're focusing on your weaknesses, it won't take you that long to train.
Right.
So usually with the weights, I have them do anywhere from 2, 3, 4 times a week weights to do some max effort training, some speed work, just like what we do.
Right.
And then 6 hours pre or post, I have them do their anaerobic conditioning or pure endurance training.
I've been focusing on kind of doing almost a partial C with my bar path, where I'm tucking, like he was talking about, tucking in, getting triceps involved, coming down, and then using leg drive and exploding up, but kind of using the leg drive in conjunction with spreading the bar and pushing it back, and then stopping and then getting the back.
So what he's asking is, how do I turn off the AC, the front part of the AC joint, and use everything else correctly? Well, that comes in how you order your training. So the stuff they did today, I took their biggest weaknesses and fixed them first. so that the body goes, oh, I need to have these muscles tight. Well, over the course of 4 to 6 weeks, 8 weeks, the body's going to realize that these other muscles are there, and they're going to start activating through the movement.
Right.
So there's not anything specific you can do other than know where your biggest weaknesses are and fix those first in the training. And that's the most important thing with how to train correctly, is know your biggest weaknesses and attack those first, give them the most energy.
Right, and the technique is crucial. You noticed when your legs were tight, that kind of stopped happening.
Yeah.
You know?
So the way to turn this off and get these to activate is to make sure that these get primary emphasis in their accessory work.
Right.
Okay. So if you go to this or anything this dominant, right, then you're going to have that issue, and you're going to reinforce that issue to be a problem.
Also, just be careful you're not over pushing, over pressing.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of us end up with our arms forward. You know, Matt's got his arm forward, mine are forward. Yours are really forward.
Yep.
Considering you're a lot less jacked than we are. But your arms are really forward. So what he's saying is, you got to balance that out with training your back, training
So
your rear delts.
70% of my upper body training for my bench press days is upper back and triceps. 70%. Everything else is just fluffer shit. But the rest of that, 70% of that, I am kicking the shit out of my lats and triceps.
Wow.
Okay. 70%.
Definitely. If I can ask one more.
Yeah.
With the sumo, so I've never done sumo before. I noticed that one of the power sets I was just pretty much using my back. So I was still trying to get tight and crack lats and everything. But when I was pulling, that's why when I got to 450, I couldn't get it off the ground really.
Yeah.
But I couldn't lock it out because I'm not.
So he's asking, how do you fix that position? Well, the thing of it is, you never trained sumo. So, and that's another good thing about the sumo pull is, if you never train it, you're going to go to natural instinct, and natural instinct's going to show you the weakest links. So when I put him in that position, as strong as he was conventional, he was just as equally weak sumo. So that's telling you in that position that you need that some muscle is lagging, which is eventually affecting the conventional pull as well. So basically, how to fix that is make sure your weaknesses are lined up. So if I was going to watch you and I pull sumo and I can see your upper back's not activating, I would want to hit my upper back right after I deadlift.
Okay.
Right? I'd want to smack the shit out of it right after I deadlift.
Okay.
And that's going to fix it.
Gotcha.
Because you got to put those two together. Makes sense?
Makes sense, yeah.
Any other questions?
When you talk about military athletes, a lot of times time is a factor.
Yes.
So, like, some guys may only be able to get to the gym 3 times a week or whatever. How would you split that up?
Yeah.
And what would your basic
Yeah.
training day look like?
They kind of fall along the line of the same thing he's asking.
Okay.
If I know where my biggest weaknesses are, which is the hardest part of knowing how to train, I don't need longer than 40, 50 minutes, and I don't need more than 2 to 3 times a week. If all I'm trying to do is be a better soldier. If I'm trying to get super strong, it's going to take more volume than that. But if I'm trying to be a balanced soldier that has very minimal injuries and just fairly strong, then all I do is focus on my weaknesses, and I don't have a time problem. Cool. But if I'm just training general bullshit because I don't know what I'm doing, right, and I'm just putting in a bunch of exercises because I saw the latest, Schwarzenegger bicep program, I've got a fucking problem. Right? I'm not fixing any weaknesses. I'm causing more injuries, and I'm wasting a bunch of fucking time.
Right.
Cool.
Fair enough.
That's the answer I was looking for.
But we know that most of the soldiers are weak. So if we have 2 max effort days, we got a max lower and a max upper, and then I have a speed day in between, I'm going to get stronger and quicker, and it's going to be better. So that becomes individual to the unit and how much time the officers and the upper officers have towards training and making sure you guys are in shape. And like I said, every base and every person I've worked with, that is a different emphasis.
Right.
Some guys want their dudes to be in good shape and are willing to give them extra time to do so, and some don't give a shit. So you have to know what you're dealing with so you know on an individual basis, and that's what makes it important for professionals to come in and analyze that and say, this is your best bang for your buck or your best time, your best time usage.
And when you're focusing on, many different aspects of strength and conditioning, it may not be the most optimal thing, but you can spread things out as far as necessary. So you might have to spread something out over the course of 2 weeks. Maybe 1 week you do 2 max effort movements. The next week maybe you do speed work. You flip flop it. You do it whatever way you can, but a minimum of 2 times a week in the gym, and probably more so 3. And then on top of that, you're also going to need to get into a little bit of conditioning work, some running,
and that's where it becomes complicated because you have to know more variables to be able to make your training better. But what I mean by that is, if you're trying to get pretty strong and pretty fit, those things are 2 things together are very hard to do, and that takes a lot of smarts and consistency. So if you know how to rotate your training, you need to get stronger, you need to get faster and more conditioned, rotate them, but don't focus on one little area all at once, because that's what's going to cause the problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So all you have to do is figure out how much time you have and then make the best you can of that time. But most of the time when I've worked with the guys, they have every morning PT hour, 6 to 7:30, they can get better. They're just doing the wrong stuff.
All right, guys, I think that pretty much wraps things up. These guys represent the United States Air Force. We appreciate all forms of military, all branches of military, and that's training with Matt Wenning with the Air Force at Super Training Gym. And that's it from supertraining.tv.